It's June 26th, 1284, and another remarkable event is about to be uncovered by Arion, Rebecca, and Olly, the Retrospectors.
According to legend, the Pied Piper led 130 children away, never to be seen again, after the town of Hamlein failed to pay him for his magical pipe-based pest control services. But what you may not know is that the fable is based on real events, which allegedly transpired today in history in the year 1284.
Yeah, I mean, in case you've forgotten, the bare bones of the story, as you alluded to, are that the town in Germany is overrun with rats. The magical piper offers to help. He lures the rats away with his music. The town refuses to pay him, and then he comes back and lures away the town's children, and they're never seen again. And just to get out ahead of the question of what is a Pied Piper, pied refers to multicoloured clothing, particularly black and white clothing. It comes from the same root as the words magpie and piebald, both referring to creatures with distinct black and white colouring. So that was what he was clad in, although when you see him today, because we will get to this, the Pied Piper still walks among us, you will obviously see him in the brightly coloured vestments that you are expecting.
Yes, coat of many colours, like Jason Donovan or Dolly Parton. Real contexts are important here, because what separates the Pied Piper of Hamlein from all of the other fairy tales is that this isn't a story that happens long, long ago in a place far, far away. This is a story that happens, and in all the sources this is the case, whether it's being told for children or whether it's being told for historical record. It happens in Hamlein, which is a real town, with 60,000 residents in Lower Saxony in Germany. And the specificity of this date is included in every telling, the 26th of June, 1284. And the precise number of the children who were taken away also never changes, 130. So what's clear is the detail of 130 children from this town going missing on the 26th of June 1284, that seems to be something that really happened.
Yes, exactly. And there's an inscribed plaque on a stone facade of the so-called Pied Piper House, which is this half-timbered private residence that dates back to 1602. And it's similar to an even earlier one that's etched into the building's window. The inscription reads, AD 1284, on the 26th of June, the day of St. John and St. Paul, 130 children, born in Hamlein, were led out of the town by a piper wearing multicoloured clothes.
Note, no reference to rats.
Right, yes, that's important. After passing the Calvary near the Koppenberg, they disappeared forever. And the inscription isn't the only evidence either. An entry in Hamlein's town records dating to 1384 laments that it's 100 years since our children left. Onward these things go. There's so much of this evidence. There was a stained glass window in the town's St. Nikolai Church, destroyed in the 17th century, but described in earlier accounts, reportedly illustrated the figure of the Pied Piper leading several ghostly white children away.
Right. I mean, there's also an inscription in the town gate which dates it to the year 1556, quote, 272 years after the magician stole 130 children from the city. So Hamlein was really going out of its way to be like, guys, this really happened. Like, we're going to put it everywhere. But for a long time, the earliest reference, because obviously the 1500s, 1600s, that's still several centuries after this is alleged to have taken place. For a long time, the earliest known references to the story were actually references to the window in the church. There are several late medieval accounts that mention that stained glass window, which obviously we no longer have the window that was smashed in 1660. This all changed in 1936, thanks to a guy called Heinrich Spanut. He was an elderly headmaster who had been judged insufficiently Nazi to continue being a headmaster. So the Hamlein town officials had given him instead
damning indictment for his epitaph.
Insufficiently
a
Nazi.
Good man, but insufficiently Nazi. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it seems like he was quite popular because the Hamlein town officials then gave him a nice quiet little job as curator of the Pied Piper Museum. And he was on a trip in 1936 to Lüneburg to search their archives for references to the legend when he came across a note in the back of a copy of The Golden Chain. This was a chronicle written in Latin in 1370 by a monk called Heinrich of Herford. This brief account of the Hamlein legend, referred to as the Lüneburg manuscript, is scribbled on the back page. It was in a different handwriting. It was probably written in the mid-1400s. And as you said, Olly, this manuscript, the earliest reference to the legend, makes no mention at all of rats. In this very short version, a handsome young piper simply sweeps into town and lures 130 children away by playing a silver flute. It wasn't until another chronicle written around a century later that we get that first mention of the rat and really fleshes out the character of the Pied Piper as an unpaid rat catcher with a grudge.
Yes, I mean, actually, I'd almost go as far to say that actually it was Robert Browning, so you're not talking until the Victorian era, who really embellished the idea of the rats because he has a lot of fun with all the rhymes around rats, not least cats. But the fundamental truth that a bunch of children disappeared does seem to have happened. So what could have happened? For a long time, historians were like, well, it was obviously the plague. It was the Black Death. But the dates do not align for that. Then there was a thinking that maybe it was St. Vitus's dance, which we've talked about before in our episode, The Town That Danced to Death, where literally either through sort of a mass hysteria or through an actual physical manifestation of a virus, people start shaking and dancing, and then because they're not getting the right fluids over a series of days, they literally dance to death. Maybe that could have happened, but then why would it just be the children, and why would they go dancing off into the mountains?
Yeah, there are so many hypotheses. One of the leading current theories suggests that the town's youth were part of a migration of Germans to Eastern Europe that was fueled by economic depression at the time. And in this scenario, the Pied Piper played a crucial role, which was the so-called locator or recruiter. They were responsible for organising migrations to the east, and they were said to have worn colourful garments and played an instrument to attract the attention of possible settlers. A German linguist called Jürgen Udolf, he suggests that the regions around Berlin are the most probable location of where these people went. And Udolf actually found that family names, common in Hamlein at the time, show up with surprising frequency in the areas of Uckermark and Prignitz near Berlin. And he locates that as the centre of the migration that supposedly went on for these economic reasons.
Actually, this theory maybe explains the role of the rats too. So there was an archivist called Wolfgang Wahn who worked alongside Spaniards in the 1930s, and he personally believed that the young people of Hamlein had ended up in Moravia, which is modern-day Czech Republic. But his theory was that Hamlein's youth were frustrated by life in what was a growing town in which power and land were concentrated in the hands of just a few families. And so they were seduced by this herald with the prospect of a fresh start in one of these new settlements in the east. And if that is indeed the case, the greed of the town officials was indeed indirectly to blame. You know, in the legend, they refused to pay the piper, but in real life, perhaps it was this fact that they were hoarding the power in the land and there were no opportunities for young people. So the rats could have been a metaphor. And actually, even though Robert Browning was writing before all these new discoveries in the 1930s, when you read his account, there is a lot of satire in it of ineffectual local councils. It's obviously directed at Victorian English readers, you know, that they can't get rid of the rats themselves. He kind of dwells quite a lot on that aspect. So, you know, the rats themselves could have been a metaphor for the greedy town councillors who were in charge of everything in Hamlein. And also, I do think that the addition of the rat angle does tend to turn the legend into a morality tale, because it's quite haunting in its original version. You know, the piper turns up and the children just leave. You bring in the rats, and although the moral is a harsh one, pay the rat catcher or he'll steal your children, at least it gives some meaning to the event.
What's kind of haunting about it, most of all, if we take the explanation that Arion outlined as the most likely one, is that they might have been following the wrong piper, which would account for why the town was so haunted by this. So what might have happened in that era is that you'd have those recruiters that Arion was talking about who would say, come with me, let's migrate to Eastern Germany. But also, wearing a similar get-up would be the festive pipers who would turn up at midsummer. And this date, the 26th of June, is basically midsummer. It is quite likely that the kids might have thought they were following a piper to a fire-lighting ceremony in the mountains for midsummer. And so they didn't say goodbye to their families. They were leaving forever. Their families thought they were going off to have some fun for the afternoon, and they never came back because they were following the piper on a migratory route.
Yeah.
That would be haunting, and that would explain why this never left the people that were left behind.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the town of Hamlein itself, you know, the residents are obviously no longer traumatised by the legend of the Pied Piper, but the legend does nonetheless loom extremely large. As you can imagine, the town's tourism industry is entirely built on Pied Piper-related novelties. So you can visit that Ratcatcher house, the one that has the inscription on it. You can go down the Bungelosenstrasse, the street without drums. This is a road in central Hamlein. For hundreds of years, music was banned on the street, and traditionally processions like carnivals and wedding parties walked along the road in silence. This is supposedly the route the children took as they left town for the last time. And of course, you can also visit the Hamlein Museum, where they employ a full-time Pied Piper. Since 1994, that has been Michael Boyer, an American who first came to Germany when serving in the US Army. He has donned his multicolored tights and tunic to play the role, to greet visitors and lead tours ever since.
That sort of makes sense, though, because he's probably mostly speaking to Americans, isn't he? And also, he is an outsider, which the Pied Piper was. It'd be kind of weird if it was a German, in a way.
He's just biding his time to steal their children.
And so another week of retrospecting ends. But next week begins a day early at Club Retrospectors. Join us now to get an exclusive episode every Sunday. Patreon.com/retrospectors.